A very good afternoon to you all. A very good afternoon to you all, and welcome once more. Welcome once more to the third and last day of the International Conference on Tax in Africa, the ICTA. We hope you've enjoyed the breakout rooms which discussed the digitalization journey in terms of the reform in tax administrations. My name is Refilwe Picheng. I'm the content developer and community manager at ATAF. I will be your co-program director for today, directing together with my colleague, Mr. Romeo Ella. We've tried to make this conference as physical as possible by using the VFairs platform in conjunction with Zoom, which has a lounge, an information desk, an auditorium, and an exhibition hall. I urge you all to please visit the hall, where you'll find the Uganda Revenue Authority, the Rwanda Revenue Authority, the ICTA, the OTR, the OTR, yes, and of course, ATAF. Please go take a look at the products and information that they have on offer for you. We're also broadcasting on social media, so please go ahead and follow us on Twitter at ATAFTax. We're also on Facebook, and that handle is also at ATAFTax. And we're also on LinkedIn, and we are the African Tax Administration Forum. So please go ahead and follow us there, and the hashtags that we'll be using for this event is hashtag ICTA 2021, that's hashtag ICTA 2021, and hashtag ATAF ICTA. We have another exciting and robust program lined up for you. So without further delay, allow me to introduce Mr. Vijay Randun. And Mr. Randun currently works as a consultant and HR facilitation. He previously worked at the Mauritius Revenue Authority as a director for the HR and training. He holds a Master of Science in Human Resource Management and a Diploma in Public Administration. He's also a member of the Mauritius Association of HR Professionals. Welcome, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to all participants and delegates. So thank you for that introduction. I would wish, before diving into the subject matter, to say a big thank you to the chairperson of ATAF, to the ES and his team for giving me the opportunity to act as the moderator for this very important session, which will be on policy and organization consideration for the digitalization journey. And in particular, what are the policy and organization consideration towards a more automated business function? So after listening to over the last 2 days on all the technical aspect of digitalization and all the benefits accruing to this scheme, we are today looking into more of the broad issues of broad policy issues and organizational considerations. To me, this is a very important subject, and to talk about this important subject, we have 4 panel members, speakers, distinguished ones, and we'll be listening to them in a few minutes. So basically, if we can agree on meaning, housekeeping, and time management consideration, we have roughly 1 hour. We have 4 speakers. The introduction part may take like 10 to 12 minutes. So what we are planning to do is to allocate 10 to 12 minutes to each speaker. And if there are questions, we take all the questions, but we'll keep it for the end of the presentation. Or if questions are too long or answers would look to be too long, we may also use the chat facility that has been provided by ATAF so that we can use that also. So with your permission, I would like to introduce our first uh, panel member. And our first panel member is Miss Nina Funmark. And sorry if I'm slightly distorted the spelling, but if you allow me, can I call you Nina for that matter? So our first speaker is Nina. Nina was appointed Commissioner of the Norwegian Tax Administration in October 2020. From 2018 to 2020, Nina held the position of CEO of the State Education Loan Fund, following 3 years as Deputy Commissioner of the Norwegian Tax Administration. After graduating in 1996 with a law degree from the University of Oslo, Nina embarked on a career within the Norwegian Tax Administration, where she had multiple management positions with increasing levels of responsibility. Between 1996 to 2001, as legal advisor at the Oslo Tax Office, then in 2001 as manager of the business department at the Bærum Tax Office. In 2004, Nina moved on to the Directorate of Taxes as head of audit section within the legal and audit department. Following a reorganization of the tax administration in 2008, she was appointed director of the Department for Control and Legal Application in Tax East Regional Office in Oslo. In 2012, Nina was promoted to Regional Director of Tax South Regional Office and became a member of the Tax Administration Senior Management Team. Nina was lead in the tax administration most recent reorganization in 2018. So that's a brief introduction of Nina, and I would like to invite her to take the floor and to make the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that nice introduction. First of all, let me thank the ATAF for the invitation and the opportunity to attend to this important conference about accelerating technology for tax administrations. As Director General of the Norwegian Tax Administration, I can say that the topic of this session about policy and organizational considerations for digital journey is, I would say, currently one of the most important issues for our organization. And this is, I would guess, probably true for all tax administrations. Through our cooperation with several African tax administrations in our capacity building program, our experience is that digitalization has been lifted high on the agenda. In Norway, the NTA started digitalizing a long time ago, so we have come quite far. But it's worth mentioning that a lot of our progress up to this point is around personal taxpayers, and we are now focusing more on businesses. At the same time, we are moving from an approach where the tax office own needs and operations have been at the center of everything to a world where we put the taxpayer in the center much more. We need to move our attention into their digital environment and into the business ecosystem where the taxable activity is happening. When it comes to a good digitalization process, the crucial factor is that there should be continuous interaction between IT, business, and legal functions. And what that means for us in the NTA is that all modernization projects should have a desired business outcome. IT modernization should be built into a finance by each business project, and that we practice agile IT development and continuously delivery of minimum viable business functionality. We won't wait until the solution is perfect and complete, but roll it out as soon as we have a workable version of the build functionality in stages. Another essential element for an efficient digitalization journey is human resources and skills requirement. All straightforward tasks can be automated, and one of the consequences of a high degree of digitalization is that our requirement changes. Instead of needing people to do those manual tasks, we will need staff to have special skill sets relevant for digitalized processes. And in our experience, we are going to need higher levels of more specialized skills and knowledge, both in IT and tax functions. As with all change management, successful digitalization will force you to address the structure of the organization, as well as its processes and technology. In Norway, we have restructured from a regional management to nationwide divisions and national case processing. Norwegian taxpayers now use digital solutions and have a high degree of self-service. Along with allowing employees to focus more on risk-based, event-oriented tasks, this should free up resources for other requirements. Operatively, we have moved resources, both personnel and financial, from the traditional casework and elsewhere to make necessary investments in IT and digitalization. To facilitate the digitalization journey, our strategy was to create a 10-year modernization plan describing how to replace and involve our IT portfolio. This plan was approved by the Ministry of Finance, which ensured the plan and political resilience and secured the necessary funding. A long-time plan like this needs regular reviews to handle changes. And these days, it would be more relevant to have continuous transformative digital development rather than large projects. Thus, if we had started today, we would have chosen a different approach. However, the 10-year plan has served us well by providing predictability, ownership, and knowledge for our stakeholders. It highlights two key points: that digitalization takes time and that it is crucial to have necessary funding to carry it out. When it comes to revenue collection, the main impact of the digitalization journey in Norway is a high degree of automation. So that for the taxpayers, the experience is very much that tax just happens. Data is reported automatically by third parties, tax is deducted in advance, and they just have to check that everything is correct. This gives a high degree of trust and voluntary compliance. When it comes to lesson learned, it is important to consider that there will always be local differences. So what worked for us is not always going to be the right answer to everyone, for everyone. And what we did 15 years ago may not be the right place to start today. Context is everything, and there is more than one right way to digitalization. The approach your tax administration take should always depend on the context and various constraints in which you operate. So, to conclude, I would say, a strategic approach to digitalization is crucial. Top management need to champion the digitalization, and stakeholder management is essential to ensure success. Digitalization can take a lot of time, but technology and business models change fast. We recommend working together in dialogue with businesses to develop solutions. Successful digitalization depends significantly on the local regional context. All non-complex tasks can be automated. You will need to train and upskill your staff for different tasks and help them to adapt the exploit digital solutions. You need the financial resources and policy, but to implement digital transformation. Digitalization is more about change management than technology. So in the NTA, we have spent many years getting to where we are today, but the journey can go much faster for others. as they can learn from countries like ours and use the lessons to fast-track their own process. You can always use the competence and assistance that currently is available both in the OECD and its member states to build capacity in this field. And we are always happy to share our experience and advice with other tax administrations, and I'm very interested to hear about your digitalization journey as well. It's through exchange and sharing we can all find the best solutions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina, for this very bright presentation on the Norwegian experience. If lots of ideas, lots of tips that we can borrow or utilize from your administration. I think what is very important is that you put it very strongly, I would even say crudely, that a digitization process is not like a 100-meter race that you run in a few seconds or a minute or two, right? It is, I would say, it's a long marathon. The marathon is something that you take time. And I'm glad you pointed out that this can even take years, right, to be built up, to be built. And you need also the very important resources. Finance is very important. HR, especially here we are talking about the people who will lead that project, who will support, who will operate that project. So from an HR background, from where I come from, I feel that you did justice to by mentioning those resources that you need. And we also captured the thing like you had the support of the Minister of Finance. And I think that's very, very important in, in any endeavor that of that size or of that level that you're making. And what I also am glad that you pointed out is about the taxpayers. At the end of the day, if the tax authority or the tax service is there, it is they want to provide the service to the taxpayers. Without taxpayers, we have no tax authority, right? So this connection, this need to provide better services to the taxpayers is very important. I have a fear, and I think Logan put it very wisely on the very first day, when he said, what will be the face or what will be like the, at the end of the day, how do we see the tax administration? Would we be like talking only to machines? Or would they, when we phone, when we call, we say, there are some people also there who can say hello to us, right? Good morning, good afternoon. Yes, you have a problem, I'm here to help. So I think that's things which are very important, you pointed out. And your 10-year modernization plan, that's something great, I'm sure, and will give the participants the opportunity. Can they, I believe, yes, they can access that document and they can find for themselves things that they want to utilize. So thank you, that was a great presentation. And we, of course, will have questions most probably for you. And that was my summarized remarks on this presentation. So thank you very much. And if there are no questions, I don't find any question, at least on the screen. Of course, there are a few points on chat, but we'll call the next panel member now. So thank you very much, Nina, and have a great time. Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, participants, thank you very much to Nina. And now we'll have the honor and pleasure to welcome Mr. Ramek Maseru, Acting Commissioner General, Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. Mr. Maseru, you are here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Vijay, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. So I need to make a short introduction before you start, before I give you the floor. So the first name is Ramek. And
That's correct.
And that's a
You can use that.
I can use that. My surname
Yes.
starts with Ram London, which is quite a long and complicated name. And yours is very short, the first name at least, Ramek. Beautiful name. So Ramek, thank you for being with us. And for the benefit of the audience, of the participants, a short introduction. Ramek is an accomplished tax expert with over 25 years experience in taxation. Congratulations, sir. Ramek is a fellow member of the Institute of Certified Tax Accountants, ICTA, associate member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators in Zimbabwe. He is also a holder of an Executive Masters of Business Administration. Ramek rejoined Zimra in August 2018 from Ernst & Young, where he worked as an executive director. Prior to that, he worked as a technical manager, regional controller, Harare Port and Harare Audits, regional controller, Bay Bridge, if I pronounce it properly, border post for the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. Ramek brings with him vast regional experience, having worked as lead people advisory services in the Central Cluster, Zambia and Malawi, and risk management review in Kenya. That's a short introduction of our distinguished panel member, who is going to most probably, almost sure of the ZRA experience, especially in the process, on the way of digitization, and what are the major policies and organization considerations that have to be taken on board. Thank you, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you to the organizers, ATAF, Logan and your team, to our panelists, fellow panelists, to the audience. We are happy as Zimra to be given an opportunity to share experiences with colleagues rather in tax administration, share our experiences of the journey we walked around policy and organizational consideration for the digitalization journey. We definitely think it's important that we share with colleagues highlights of the transformation journey that we have experienced as an organization, issues to do with the legal considerations that enables successful implementation of the digitalization program, the extent to which our digitalization is impacted on a critical stakeholder, which is our taxpayers, is impacted on our core mandate, which is revenue mobilization for our beloved nation. In the process of digitalization, colleagues, we did have lessons to learn, experience that have been gained, both administratively and technically. I will start by going through examples of areas of digitalization that we have undergone as a revenue authority. We have had to adopt the web-based technologies that allow our stakeholders access to our service. High-speed data communication. This required that we work with service providers, so we are able to connect all our sites across the entire country. We would then require to work closely with those that have got the skills and the resources to provide the infrastructure that enable this arrangement. You are looking at internet services, you are looking at power generation, You are looking at the owners of the land, and this process required that as an authority, we put together teams that would work with all these key enablers to the business. So we are all aligned. It is also important that as we walked the journey, it was also critical to make sure that we provide a framework for the integration and interface with other data sources, including the banks, mobile money operators, as well as other service providers, so that we then are able to leverage the existing infrastructure, the existing technology, resulting in a seamless service delivery in as far as tax remittances are concerned. In addition, we had to make sure that we do have a modern server and storage and server technologies, modernize the infrastructure, which improved the throughput for processing. And most importantly, we all know that data is the new gold mine, and the ability to handle such data becomes key and paramount, so that within the business, as we carry out our administration, we are able to carry out our analytics and business intelligence for ease of administration. It is important, Chairman, Moderator, to make sure that we protect the information that we gather through technology. It is important to make sure that we protect the organization from possible interference. Therefore, security of our technologies was also paramount. It's therefore important that we had to come up with measures and solutions that allowed for the protection of our environment, as well as possibility of cyber attacks. Transformation from a manual environment, which obviously had its own rules and regulations, requires that as we were migrating from the manual environment into the technology-based environment, the law had to recognize the new environment. Therefore, important at the legal point, at the policy point, that we recognize the need for us to have an overall situation that complies with our national constitution, our national laws, because you find that our declarations are declarations that must be admissible in the event that there are inquiries, in the event that there are disputes. The laws, respective laws within the authority was administering had to be amended so that we provide for the acceptance of electronic filing. We provide for the acceptance of electronic signature. We provide framework that allows for the recognition of those who, in terms of the law, are obligated to make sure that the requirements of the law are complied with. That's all legislations like our VAT Act, Capital Gains Tax Act, Income Tax Act, our fiscalization, our customs and excise had to be put in place in order to guide the development and the configuration, as well as the implementation of the solution moderator. What has been the learning lessons or the impact of this development, ICT development? We have seen an upward growth and trajectory in revenue ever since ZIMRA embarked on the digitalization journey. As a result of digitalization, the authority has been surpassing all its revenue targets with significant growth year after year. We have had projects such as the electronic cargo tracking system, which have reduced the revenue leakages, in addition to one of the most important requirements of trade facilitation. Since as a country or as an economy, we are a gateway both in north and south of sub-Saharan Africa. Therefore, the implementation of the cargo tracking system remain key and important. The compliance rate, Mr. Moderator, by taxpayers is significantly improved as a result of the web technology. I must also emphasize at this point in time that in line with other reforms that have undergone, where we have categorized our taxpayers into the large client taxpayers, medium client taxpayers, and small client taxpayers, we have seen those within our large client taxpayers whose tax function is reasonably organized, where we have recorded compliance rates, that is on time filing and on time payment, growing to as much as in excess of 90% for every tax period. These are the benefits of our taxpayers being able to log in and access our services offline and electronically. Client satisfaction levels have also improved, and we also think this we attribute to that. Lessons learned, moderator, include, when we developed our systems, and because of the background of our legislation, they hardly recognize the different levels of sophistication, different levels of development in as far as our taxpayers are concerned. They have kind of put on a one jacket fits all solution, which has seemed to ignore the unique needs for the upstarters. So we have identified that as an issue that we need to deal with, so that we make sure that we do provide and recognize the less developed type of our taxpayer, both for customs as well as VAT and the other tax obligation are concerned. We need legal instruments which compel clients to comply with the use of technology. For example, our fiscalization, that uptake has not been as exciting for some of our less developed clients. Need for support functions to push forward for the adoption of given technology, that is our legal, finance, research, and ICTA expertise and others. Identifying and focusing on the most critical business processes that will best support the strategy in the automation. I will tell you that we do have developed, to try and deal with this, we developed an IT strategy that takes into account the resources required, that takes into account the financial resources, that takes into account other key strategic partners that we need to work with. So we found that it is an important thing to take into consideration as we digitalize. It's important, moderator, to invest in our people, invest in the new ways of working. There is a great need for us to review automation as a way to enhance human productivity rather than as a way to replace manual labor. So we think we can get more out of our workforce by digitalizing our operations. We continue to encourage cross-divisional collaboration because we do have systems that can easily integrate. We have seen benefits that are coming when we work with other strategic partners, where we then have integration of systems, adoption on operating model that brings together expertise from across the organization, and collaborating with third parties such as consultants, vendors, reinvent critical processes with automation. We also have found that to be critical. Just to conclude, Chair, to say we must always make automation or digitalization a priority, like we have done as an organization, where this is being monitored as the highest level within the organization in terms of our automation strategy. Focus on people as much as technology. We know if our people are not motivated, that technology will not develop or deliver as much as expected. Establishing operating models that enable scaling, as well as outsourcing and seeking technical assistance from colleagues that have done it better than us. We find this to be quite important and supportive, because you always want to be amongst those that have done it before and we've done it better. I thank you so much for the opportunity to share with colleagues our digitalization journey as the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ramek. Commissioner General Zimra, and that was a brilliant presentation. Thorough, well covered. We have looked at many issues. I won't say all the issues because we cannot look at all the issues. Issues will all keep on coming, but we have looked at many major issues. And quickly, as a recap, I would mention a few of them, which I feel are important to mention once again. You talk about your key enablers in the administration. You also stress a lot, emphasize a lot on the importance of data and analytics. I would say, not being a data specialist myself, a mining of data probably, that Commissioner General may tell us whether this is a proper word to use, but these are very important concepts. These are very important tools. Also, the legal system that you have in place that is supporting the administration. I believe this is a very important aspect that we need not to, like, how do you say that, neglect. You need to have that sound legal background, as well as the, as we say, the support of the ministry concerned, finance, planning, and so on. I like the word you said, walking the journey. I'm very much used to walking the talking or walking the talk, but here you put something new to me. So it's walking the journey. In fact, we're on a journey, Commissioner General. And for me, this is a proper word, walking the journey, because we have a lot to do and there will be still a lot to do. We have heard that from the first panel member, the first speaker, and I'm glad you also pointed out this concept of walking the journey. And you also pointed out that the compliance rate has greatly increased and improved in Zimbabwe through the digitalization project. You have better returns, and you also have an improvement in the taxpayers' connect and engagement. That I'm very, very happy to hear from you, Commissioner General, because, you know, as I said it previously, I have a I'm scared that tomorrow, when we talk to our tax administration, it will be a machine talking back to us. I want to get that people who are there, who is saying, hello, sir, what can I do to help you? That's something very important. You talk about, you mentioned hackers. You mentioned risk. So a very quick question. Do you have something in place for disaster management, which takes care of anything that can happen, even hackers, cyber crimes? So that, if you have it, yes, yes, sir.
Can I respond?
Yes, in a few minutes, please.
Quickly, probably in less than a minute. Yes, otherwise we have a robust risk management system. We do have dedicated resources that are constantly monitoring the systems, making sure that controls are in place. We do have an off-site servers which replicate the operating servers. So we do have data that is stored away from within our operations, so that we have an opportunity to continue to operate should we experience problems within our system. And from time to time, we do take an opportunity to reflect and check on the robustness of our systems and use international technology to test our compliance with risk management issues, where we score ourselves against a globally established process that then helps us to identify issues that require us to attend to from time to time. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner General. And the last 2 points that I feel I need to at least give justice to, those two very important. It is the people and the strategic partners that you mentioned. I think without people, there is no system, there cannot be an organization, right? So people, and you said that you are in the process of continuously developing your people. We heard that from the first speaker also, where she mentioned about high skilled and highly developed, high knowledge people. So people is at the core, at the heart of any and every development. And even in the digitalization process, we need those people that you are developing constantly. And of course, the strategic partners. This is where we can say we are closing the loop. You have all the ingredients there to have a very fruitful and successful digitalization scheme, journey towards greater success, if I may say so. So thank you very much, Ramek. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Commissioner General, for this brilliant presentation. And I would now wish to call our third panel member, Mr. Tabu Kasipe. Mr. Kasipe, can you hear me, please?
I hear you very well, DJ.
Ah, great. Thank you. May I, sir, with your permission, use your first name, Tabu?
Oh, yes, by all means.
Thank you so much. So, a short presentation before I give you the floor. Tabu, Commissioner General of the Lesotho Revenue Authority, is a chartered financial analyst. He obtained a bachelor's degree in economics at the National University of Lesotho in 1994 before enrolling at the University of Nairobi, Kenya, where he graduated with a master's degree in econometrics and quantitative economics in 1998. He also obtained a master's of business administration, business commerce, general degree from the University of Orange Free State, South Africa in 2008. Tabu joined the LRA, the Lesotho Revenue Authority, as Commissioner of Customs and Excise in 2003 and was later appointed to the position of Deputy Commissioner General, serving in the position from 2004 to 2007. He also acted in the position of Commissioner General for a period of 1 year. He then joined Stanley Lesotho as General Manager from 2007 to 2008. He was a country's ambassador to Kuwait from 2008 to 2014, before joining DAVCAP as Managing Director from 2014 to 2015. His last appointment before joining LRA was to the post of Deputy Executive Secretary at Southern African Customs Union in Namibia. So, sir, this is a short introduction of yourself. And now I would like you to take the chair, to take the floor rather, and make your presentation on the experience that you have lived in the Lesotho Revenue Authority. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, DJ, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and I will get on with it right away, given that time is not exactly a luxury we have. So I thought I would, I'll just share my screen just to make perhaps a presentation much more perhaps effective. Please do confirm if you can see my screen. VJ?
Yes. I can see. I hope all the other participants also can see. Yes, that's good.
I'd like to think so, yes. Yeah, as you indicated, we're talking about policy and organizational considerations towards a more automated business function. And I thought I would zero in, obviously, on the very word itself, automated. I actually checked it on the dictionary, and what I got was that it really means working by itself with little or no human input. Now, this is very important, or human control. It's a very important definition, because we are talking about moving towards this automated manner of actually doing our job, under discharging our mandate of collecting tax. And to us as the Lesotho Revenue Authority, we see the issue of automation or digitization as a deep strategic issue that really is underpinned by this very word automated or automation. Now, automation for us goes beyond, in fact, it being an end in itself, but actually includes an element of appreciating that it's a means to some end, because we differentiate between what we have recently coined as automatic compliance or auto compliance, really vis-a-vis the traditional compliance of voluntarism, voluntary compliance vis-a-vis automatic compliance. And lately what we are emphasizing is strategically, we are aiming at achieving automatic compliance. And we believe automatic compliance is actually a higher standard than the traditional, voluntary compliance. It's a higher standard because, again, going back to the definition, it's compliance that happens with little or no human control. And to that extent, what this means is you therefore achieve a better alignment between the approach or the strategic approach that we adopt as a revenue authority and what psychologists in behavioral insights tell us, that if you want any initiative, any change to be adopted by human beings, i.e. the taxpayers that we obviously want them to be compliant and follow whatever systems we put in place. Behavioral scientists tell us that we need to make sure that we adopt what can be summarized as the East model, really implying that it has to be easy in order for people to adopt it. And automation does that. And we've had a lot of that talk in this 3 days, that we automate in order for making it easy for compliance to happen. Indeed, we are told by psychologists that it also has to be attractive. Human beings are attracted to things that are easy, that are also attractive. It calls their attention. It also has to be social in the sense of it being adopted by everyone and becomes a trend. Human beings like trends. They like, these days we talk about trends becoming viral. It just shows how social we are as animals. And therefore, if you want high levels of tax compliance, automation should ensure that it's not only easy, it's not only attractive, it really has to be something that's done by everyone, and we have to make sure that it becomes a social trend. There's also, of course, the issue of it needing to be timely, which basically means as real time as possible. You want people to basically fulfill their obligations in as real time as possible. The traditional model of historical accounting, where we look back at records of last year or 5 years ago, it's not timely. It tends to therefore suffer from that problem, that compliance suffers because of that time lag that it has. So basically what we're talking about, therefore, is the strategic underpinning, going back to the policy and perhaps strategic considerations. The strategic underpinning should be to see automation more as a vehicle that is really intended to bring about this automatic compliance that we are seeing as a higher standard.
I can no longer hear.
You can't hear me?
Yes, now it's okay. Now it's okay. Carry on.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we are aiming for this higher standard of automatic compliance, where compliance happens perhaps with as little input as possible from the part of the taxpayer, because automation becomes then the means toward achieving that automation, which makes it easy, attractive, social, and timely. Now, what are the considerations, going back to the topic of our panel discussion now? The first consideration is to realize that this is actually a very big paradigm shift that we're talking about. It is not just a mere incremental change. It is a paradigm shift from a different way of doing business. And we see it more as an adapt or die situation. And I'll explain what I mean by that. It's a bit of an adapt or die situation. There is no choice, basically, for us. We need to adapt. It's a global trend. It is happening. Yesterday, we did hear very insightful presentations alluding to the fact that the very businesses and individuals that we are mandated to tax are sophisticated. They have adopted these automated systems. They are actually leveraging on big data, blockchain, and all these other technologies. And therefore, we have no choice but to follow through. And I think what's important with that thinking is to then realize that automation is not so much of an advantage as, in fact, a hygiene factor. We need it. It's not a matter of saying, if I have it, then I have an advantage. It's a matter of saying you either have it or you're just going to remain behind. So it's really not a choice. It's really not something very clever that we need to do to be ahead of the game. In fact, it's something we need to do as a revenue authority to catch up, because we are actually behind the curve. This is the strategic consideration that we think it's very important from the word go to appreciate that, because it then informs even issues of prioritization in terms of even resource allocation, even in terms of how the organization is structured, because unless and until we see it as really an adapt or die situation, it may be viewed as a luxury that perhaps can be kicked, we can kick the can down the road with a risk, of course, of further remaining behind. Now, I couldn't resist sharing a lesson that or at least I'm reading that I've just been doing as part of this, strategic thinking. That goes back to perhaps the origins of how taxation, at least in medieval Europe, started. It's interesting how, in fact, what we are trying to do now with this digitization and indeed big data analytics approach, where we rely more on data than on us being told stories by taxpayers, how in fact it's how taxation began in the first place, at least in medieval Europe. And there's a story of King William the Conqueror, who actually conquered England. And in order to basically make sure that he had enough revenue to discharge his mandate of controlling the recently conquered land, he came up with what is called a Doomsday Book. It was a book that basically was compiled by an army of his tax collectors or tax service officials that he sent all over England back then in 1085 AD, that he sent out all over the land to compile a list of the assets owned by everyone on the land, with a view to basically knowing what everybody owns so that he could tax them more efficiently. This is the first example of a system that really was based on data. And it was not dependent on people telling stories to the king, but rather on the king collecting the data at source himself. And then the king was able to make a demand to his subjects that you pay me what I know that you have. And I think the key word here is the king says, pay me what I know that you have. The king knows. The king doesn't rely on you making a declaration, and perhaps the king doesn't even have to rely on having an army of auditors who would then go and verify whether you lied to the king or not. But the king proactively goes out and compiles the data at source so that the king knows what you have, and therefore whatever you pay, the king knows that it is the correct amount. So this is a very key lesson that really indicates how digitization, at least how we view it within the context of the Lesotho Revenue Authority. We are adopting digitization, but we really are looking at it as a means to an end, because our focus is more on big data. We are trying to leverage big data, which again is about collecting it from within our own systems and warehousing it more efficiently. It's about third-party collection of the same data and harnessing that data to generate insights that would in fact lead us to getting pre-populated returns, where we actually present a return to the taxpayer rather than the taxpayer submitting a return. This is a big focus of our digitization journey, pre-population of returns. And we actually have a project focus on this. It has many elements, of course. Part of it is to make sure that we restructure the organization in order to make sure that there is structure alignment to strategy. That's what we call our restructuring exercise, the project, at least a SaaS project. We are restructuring the organization. We're changing our business model. We have beefed up our IT resources to make sure that it's adapt and is actually up to scratch in terms of discharging its mandate. These are the underpinnings in terms of our thinking, which informs our strategy. I'll just conclude by sharing in these just 5 slides what then the strategy that we have adopted boils down to. So our strategic approach is really made up of, it starts with a diagnosis, and then a guiding policy, and then a set of coherent actions that are going to be implemented in order to achieve the guiding policy. Now, going back to the logic of saying the strategy is a means to an end, we have outcomes that we seek to achieve. We want to improve revenue collection. And then you see, once again, that issue of automatic compliance becoming a key issue as part of what we want to achieve. We want to improve quality of service because we believe it underpins everything that we do also. But more importantly, we can do all these as long as the cost of collection of doing it is too high, then it's all for naught. So these are the outcomes, the end game for us of digitization. Digitization should deliver this. It is not an end in itself. And therefore, if it were to fail to achieve these 4 outcomes, then it would not have been a success. The guiding policy that emerged really is one that says we want to build automatic compliance by harnessing strategic partnerships and developing business acumen. Now, key is, there it goes. Automatic compliance becomes a very, very important part of our guiding policy as an organization. And this is very much the organizational approach. And then there's strategic partnerships being sort of emphasized, because there's acknowledgement of the fact that you can't achieve automatic compliance without harnessing the big data that comes from all over the place. I'll just then go to the last but one slide, which summarizes, and I think emphasizes a very, very important point. It summarizes our coherent actions in terms of the strategic objectives that we will be pursuing in order to achieve that guiding policy of building this automatic compliance, i.e. compliance that happens without you having to lift a finger because a return is pre-populated for you, because the authority has been able to harness the big data that is all over in the banks, in the insurance companies, in the land administration authority, and within the government system itself, in the treasury. Now, these are the strategic objectives packaged according to what we call our sources of capital in the spirit of integrated thinking, so that we are not sort of approaching only financial objectives and maybe compromising social capital and human capital. What you will realize, and I'll highlight a few of the objectives here. If you look at objective number 6, there are 13 objectives that we pursue, this being the last one. If you look at number 6, for example, under human capital, we are trying to build staff competency. We want to increase organizational competency index on compliance, big data analytics. So we have to train our staff in data analytics to make sure that the human capital is there to support the strategic objectives. Of course, there is a motivation of staff issue that has to be dealt with also, and performance management system has to support the development of that new culture and skill. On innovation capital, we also have a very important number 9 as the strategic objectives, increasing the percentage of pre-populated tax returns and customs declarations to 90% by the year 2023. That's what we aim to achieve. Now, it's under innovation capital. There is also process under innovation capital, apart from product or the service that we offer. We want to increase enterprise-wide innovation maturity level, focusing more on, again, going back to the issue of automatic compliance. What you realize is throughout our strategic objectives, all 13 of them, there's a very, very heavy emphasis on this issue of automatic compliance, because that is what we say we aim to achieve as an organization. So this is an area I thought I would focus on, the strategic underpinning and the policy underpinning the entire strategy towards making sure that we don't just do automation as an end in itself, but rather we do it in order to achieve this automatic compliance that would, at the end of the day, achieve the objective of bringing about more collection, reduce cost of collection, good service, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Hello. Just in time, CG. Thank you so much. We are really short of time now, and
I realize that.
I know you have been rushing through all the slides. Thank you for sharing this PowerPoint presentation with all of us. So you have brought another dimension to this debate, and I'm glad you did that. And a number of things that have come up. But I believe our audience and our participants will make surely a request to ATAF to have some of those major points that you have highlighted where they can have it in their own administration. So lots of ideas, but I really like just to quickly summarize it, because we have to call on the next panel member, that for you, the digitization process goes in hand with your people. People digitization equals to or leads to greater success. So a few more points that I have noted, but maybe I can put it in the chat afterwards so that we gain on time. So thank you very much, CG, but thank you very much, Tabu. And I would like now to call our fourth and last participant, Mr. Nambo Nyanga. Mr. Nyanga, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Great. So thank you to be with us. You will be taking us. You are from the IMF Secretariat, and more precisely from the TADAT side. We know that TADAT stands for Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tools. We have had this exercise done in Mauritius at the MRA some years back, where I was also one of the participants. So I understand a bit of the process. So very quickly, as a short introduction, you are presently a senior economist in the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF. You have led and participated various diagnostic and technical assistance missions across the world. Before that, before joining the IMF, you worked for the Gambia Revenue Authority for 14 years. You were also a director responsible for research and planning, and you have participated in many tax policy review processes. Early on, you work in budget office on tax and expenditure, so you have a very sort of rich and diversified portfolio, if I may say so. So I would like to leave the floor to you. Namebo, can I use that first name, please?
Yes, please.
Good, thank you so much. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say that on behalf of the Secretariat, we are happy to be part of the participants at this conference. And to Logan and your team, congratulations on successfully holding this 5th International Tax Conference. We know it's not an easy undertaking, but you've done it for the 5th time. Congrats. So, like has already been explained, I will share the views, our views in the Secretariat based on the findings of the assessments we've undertaken in 53 countries in Africa. Of those, 40 are at the national level, and that's where our interest really is. And those, of course, among the 40 national assessments, there have been 4 repeats. So basically the results are from 36 countries. I don't know if everyone can see my PowerPoint. Are people able to see my slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So for those who might not know, TADAT is a tool that is designed to provide an objective assessment of the health of the key components of a country's system of tax administration. So basically we compare the key components of the country to international good practice. We are not basically comparing countries. So if you like, this is not some kind of a beauty contest. So the areas of concern in terms of digitalization, they are about 3, what we call 3 dimensions, where we look at things to do with digitalization. So the first component looks at the taxpayer database or the registration. So this is the one which has the first 2 dimensions, if you can see, adequacy of information and accuracy of information. So under this particular area, what we are measuring in is the outcome, the outcome that we want to gain by digitalization, or digitalizing the taxpayer register. So the goal here is that the goal is that all the businesses, individuals, and other entities that are required to register are included in the taxpayer registration database. And then the information that is contained in the database is supposed to be complete, accurate, and up to date. So those are the first 2 indicators. That's what we are trying to measure. So if you like, the adequacy of information looks more at how the system is designed. Is the system designed to meet those international good practice of what you must have in the system? Then the second dimension, the one on accuracy of information, is now looking at the content of what is contained in the system. So we look at that as a whole. Then the other component we look in terms of digitalization is tax revenue accounting system. So for the tax revenue accounting systems, we look at how your tax revenue accounting system is designed. And the goal there is basically that whatever tax revenues you collect, they must be fully accounted for, monitored against expectations, and analyzed to inform government revenue forecasting. So in these 36 countries, when we look at the adequacy of information, the design, excuse me, the design of the systems, we find that about 49.1% of the countries, the design of the system does not meet the international good practice. It's of great concern. Then in terms of accuracy of information, the information contained in most of these systems in these 36 countries is of great concern. Then tax revenue, the tax revenue accounting system also 55.3% of the countries, their system design is a big problem. So if you like, overall, our findings on the ground are that in terms of digitalization, yes, there's a lot of progress that has moved, that has happened in most of our countries in the last 20 years or so. We have moved from the manual systems to automated systems. Of course, that's progress in itself. But when we have been doing this conversation, I mean, these are assessments, the conversations we've had in terms of understanding the journey that Africa has undertaken. One of the things we've quickly noted is that most of the countries, maybe they have had 3 to 4 systems in the last 20 years. So there's been a lot of replacement of systems and so on. So it's one of the challenges which we've had. Then in the other issues that have been arising during these conversations, when we are discussing some of the challenges they are finding, some of the pointers are that there's usually, especially at a design stage, there's usually some kind of tug of war, if you like, between the business and the IT systems. In most of the countries, you find that the business itself, they tend to say that they have had to change the systems every now and then because the IT people are the ones taking the lead in designing these systems, and they do not necessarily listen to the business, what they want in the system. So from our standpoint, there's great need to have synergies between the business and the people who are designing these systems, especially in terms of coming with the blueprints, because the business are the people who understand the business processes. And so if we are to, because basically when we are having these systems, we are kind of automating the manual systems we had. So there's need to have a lot of emphasis on business processing mapping and business re-engineering, so that we have synergies between the business and the others. Then one of the challenges we've also noted in terms of the system is that in some of the countries, the development of these systems has been more left to the experts. For example, the service providers that are hired. And when these people leave, there's always a problem. We also have issues of where even changing small things, like maybe the rate has changed, you still have to go back to the developers, and the developers will tell you this is a change request, so you need maybe to pay some more money. Some countries will not have, they will have challenges of maybe having the source code. And then the other issue we've also noted during these assessments as related to issues of change management. I think in most of the countries, there hasn't been a lot of emphasis on the softer issues. For example, one of the biggest challenges some countries have is how to
Président de séance, je suis désolé d'interrompre, mais nous allons devoir finir dans à peu près 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Okay. So the issue of change management, there's usually a bit of resistance among staff. You find that even if you have a new system, people also have a multiplicity of Excel spreadsheets and so on, which they still maintain. So that needs to be addressed. And maybe in the interest of time, in terms of what we think the impact on digitalization has been, like I stated, the first part of the journey, moving from the manual systems to automated systems, has been achieved, and we need to consolidate the gains there. But we still have challenges. For example, even obtaining some statistics among the 4 obligations, for example, the number of taxpayers you have for each tax type, the number, the people who file on time or those who don't file, the people who paid on time, and other issues concerning accounting are still a big challenge in the tax revenue accounting systems. Suspense accounts are very common. Many countries have these huge suspense accounts that have not been resolved. And then the other question people are asking, yes, we've automated. What government wants from us is what we put on the table at the end of the day, the revenues. We've also, over these last 20 years or so, we've kind of seen that the tax revenue, tax effort, revenue as a percentage of GDP, especially in our region, has remained more or less at the same level. So in conclusion, a lot of effort has gone into digitalization, but the journey of perfecting the benefits we get from the system is still there. But we have a journey, but quite a lot of work also has gone into to change the way we run our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Membu. You have really raised the challenge and of how to have the synergies between business and process. The business means the processes, etc., and the infrastructure that has been put up by the people. Thank you very much. And since we are very short of time, I would like to end this presentation and retour back to ATAF team to take over, please. Thank you very much.
Merci à vous, Monsieur Ramnondun, et aussi à vos panélistes pour cet excellent panel sur les considérations politiques et organisationnelles pour le processus de numérisation. Mesdames et messieurs, avant de passer à la session suivante, permettez-moi de me présenter rapidement. Je suis Roméo Nkulu-Ella, je suis chef du service médias et communication à l'ATAF et je serai votre hôte pour le reste de la journée. Notre prochaine session est aussi notre dernière étude de cas sur la numérisation de l'administration fiscale. Et pour vous en dire plus, Monsieur le commissaire général de l'autorité fiscale d'Eswatini, Monsieur Dumisani Masilela, que vous avez eu l'occasion d'écouter lors de la première journée. CG, nous vous serions infiniment reconnaissants si vous pouviez vous en tenir à 45 minutes seulement pour cette session. Merci beaucoup, à vous la parole.
Thank you very much, Romeo. May I check if I am audible? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, you are audible, Mr. Masilela.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by observing that we are indeed starting when, according to the program, we're supposed to be finishing this session. Apologies for any inconvenience caused to anybody. We are going to try and push with my panelists to stick within the allocated time of 45 minutes. We've had a very rich discussion already, and I do not need to do a very long introduction, but clearly I would like to congratulate ATAF for having convened this session, as we have shared quite a bit in terms of the activities that underpin what we do and what other colleagues are doing. We are going to continue with that process today, and we are going to hear from our colleagues from Angola. And the presentation is going to be led by Mrs. Margarita Antonio. I hope I am pronouncing that name correctly, ma'am. Mrs. Antonio graduated in Applied Information Systems at the Midrand Graduate Institute in the Republic of South Africa. She later attended the Agostino Neto University for a university extension course in tax law, and is currently project manager of the SIGT project at the AGT, which I believe is the Revenue Administration in Angola. In addition, she has held positions of head of user support unit of the National Customs Service, thus coordinating the implementation of the SIGT project. Mrs. Antonio, let me welcome you, Madam, and invite you to make your presentation. I do hope in making a presentation you will include information on what motivated you to choose the system that you are currently using, the critical business requirements that informed the choice of system, the process you engaged in acquiring the system, and whether or not there was any assistance that you obtained from any entity to support you through the process. And also share with us whatever other information that you would deem appropriate to share in this forum. We unfortunately have to confine our interaction to 45 minutes. I am hoping you can do your presentation in 30 so that maybe we can allow a 15 minutes question and answer session. You have the floor, Madam.
Ok. Muito boa tarde. Obrigada, Dumissani. Senhoras e senhores, muito obrigado pela palavra. Desde já agradeço pelo convite. Agradeço o convite de estamos aqui para partilhar um bocadinho aquilo que é o processo da reforma estrutural do sistema tributário angolano, né, que passa também pela reforma legislativa como a reforma a nível de sistemas. Então, eu vou tentar partilhar com vocês aquilo que tem sido o nosso percurso durante esses últimos anos. Obrigada. Por favor, podemos passar para o próximo slide. Qual é o objetivo dessa apresentação? O objetivo é apresentar o sistema que nós hoje temos desenvolvido. Mas antes de falar do sistema, eu gostaria de fazer um pequeno enquadramento porquê desta reforma do sistema. Na verdade, a reforma tem como base legal o decreto presidencial 50/11, de 23 de março, que define as linhas gerais do Executivo para a reforma do sistema tributário e também orienta quais são os objetivos, né, desta reforma e as estratégias. Com base nesta reforma, então, houve necessidade de se procurar um sistema, desenvolver um sistema que pudesse, então, albergar todas essas alterações. Desde o início da modernização tecnológica, isto é, desde a implementação do sistema ICTA, o ICTA foi implementado em 2018, né, começou pelo módulo de cadastro. Nós temos vindo a implementar vários produtos de forma faseada, até porque a própria reforma também tem sido faseada, né? Vários diplomas foram reestruturados durante esse período. Então, à medida que os diplomas vão sendo revistos, o sistema vai sendo adequado para, então, responder à base legal. Estes resultados foram possíveis, que eu depois, durante a apresentação, vou demonstrar, também muito pela aderência dos contribuintes, as novas tecnologias, novos desafios que têm sido apresentados. Então, sem os contribuintes, né, sem a colaboração dos contribuintes, para que nós diariamente também melhoremos aquilo que são os nossos sistemas, porque no final do dia o contribuinte é que acaba por usar os sistemas, não seria possível nós hoje também termos já este avanço a nível tecnológico. Ok, podemos passar para o próximo slide. Okay. Quais são os principais objetivos do ICTA? Como eu já mencionei anteriormente, quando falamos dos principais objetivos, estamos a falar dos objetivos da reforma. Né? O SIG tem um sistema informático que vem apenas materializar aquilo que são os objetivos da reforma. e como no dia de hoje a automatização dos sistemas informáticos possibilitam nós alcançarmos vários objetivos, né? Como, por exemplo, aumentar a arrecadação, melhorar a comunicação e interação com os contribuintes. É importante que a administração geral esteja próxima sempre dos seus contribuintes, né? Porque sem os contribuintes nós não estaríamos aqui, então é importante nós também promovermos esta aproximação sempre com os contribuintes, possibilitar a submissão dos processos declarativos de forma automática, ao invés de manual, tanto quanto os pagamentos. Muito importante ter uma visão integrada dos contribuintes, isto é, eu através do sistema consigo ver a história tributária desde o dia que este contribuinte foi criado até o dia que o contribuinte vai a óbito, possivelmente. O sistema tem que poder nos dar esta visão. Temos também outras vantagens, temos várias vantagens, mas, de facto, os sistemas devem trazer sempre vantagens, né? Então, nós, através do sistema, temos, sim, já colhido muitas vantagens. Obrigada. Podemos passar para o próximo slide, por favor? Okay. O SIGT, o que é o SIGT? O SIGT é nada mais do que um sistema informático, né? É uma aplicação. O Sistema Integrado de Gestão Tributária. Como eu já mencionei, a reforma do sistema tributário é uma reforma estrutural, né? Que é transversal a todas as áreas do negócio da instituição. Então, o sistema deve poder responder de forma automática a esta demanda. Por isso é que nós chamamos integrado. O SIGT deve poder ver o sistema de uma forma transversal, ao invés de olhar para o sistema ou pelas áreas como pequenos cílios. A nível de desenvolvimento, o SIGT está desenvolvido numa plataforma PCRM, né, Oracle Public Sector Revenue e Java. O SIGT está desenvolvido em duas vertentes, né? Nós temos a vertente dos serviços, né, da administração, que é utilizada pelos agentes, né, tributários, e temos a vertente do contribuinte, que é o portal contribuinte, que é desenvolvido em Java. Estas plataformas são plataformas bastante atuais, adequadas e inovadoras, por isso é que elas foram selecionadas, que permitem também reduzir os custos e rapidamente adequar ou melhorar os sistemas sem muita complexidade. A nível de hardware, tendo em conta a robustez que se necessita para implementar os sistemas, nós temos também um grande desafio. A nível de infraestrutura, nós temos os superclasses, que são servidores da Linux e Oracle, que oferecem também uma escalabilidade que possibilita um desempenho excepcional comparado com os clusters tradicionais. A nível de infraestrutura, deve estar preparada para que o sistema possa funcionar de forma tranquila. Quais são os requisitos que incentivaram esta opção, essa escolha do sistema? Havia necessidade de ter um sistema centralizado e não base de dados ou sistemas isolados, né? Então, o SIGT traz isso. Atualização em tempo real. Todas as operações são feitas a nível do sistema, tanto do lado do serviço, do lado do contribuinte, ficam disponíveis quase de imediato, né, em tempo real. É possível a parametrização dentro daquilo que são as alterações da legislação, tendo em conta que nós estamos a passar por essa reforma legislativa, o sistema deve rapidamente poder ser ajustado para responder a essa demanda legislativa. Possibilidade de integrar com outros sistemas, né? A nível da administração, nós temos que consumir informação de outros órgãos para garantir qualidade da informação, né? A nível daquilo que são os impostos geridos pela administração, a nível do imposto predial, a nível do imposto industrial, do IVM, sobre veículos motorizados, é necessário que haja integração com os órgãos responsáveis pela informação deste tipo de móveis, para que nós tenhamos, então, uma base de dados robusta. E também possibilitar os pagamentos eletrônicos. É importante que todos os pagamentos sejam eletrônicos. Então, esses foram alguns critérios que hoje já conseguimos alcançar, mas que foram primordiais na escolha da ferramenta. Obrigada. Próximo slide, por favor. O sistema foi adquirido via concurso público, tendo em conta que o sistema faz parte da estratégia da instituição, né? É um sistema que vem materializar aquilo que são os objetivos estratégicos, então foi adquirido via concurso público, seguindo todos os parâmetros legais. Quais são os principais avanços que nós tivemos? Já tivemos vários avanços, que eu depois vou focar naqueles que são mais visíveis, mais vantajosos, mas falando muito rapidamente, é possível hoje aceder ao sistema qualquer parte do mundo, via portal do contribuinte. A informação está centralizada, como eu também já mencionei, o que é muito importante, ter uma única base de dados, né? É importante também ter a higienização da base de dados de cadastro, né? O cadastro é onde tudo começa, o cadastro é onde o contribuinte nasce, então é importante que nós tenhamos um cadastro atualizado e com a informação correta, para que depois, então, possamos acompanhar a vida deste contribuinte de forma produtiva. Informatização de todas as declarações dos impostos, os pagamentos eletrônicos e, principalmente, a criação do portal do contribuinte como uma repartição fiscal virtual. Isto é, hoje o contribuinte não precisa de ir ao escritório físico da administração para cumprir com as suas obrigações. Na sua casa, dentro, fora do país, qualquer parte onde o contribuinte estiver, hoje já pode pagar os seus impostos. Obrigado. Próximo slide, por favor. Assistência da ATAF. A assistência da ATAF tem sido contínua. A ATAF é um parceiro estratégico. Aliás, estes eventos, esses fóruns, que a ATAF convida a administração geral para participar, tem sido um fórum de aprendizado, onde nós aprendemos muito com os outros países que também estão a passar pelo mesmo processo que nós, né? Alguns mais avançados. E então é importante, nós temos sempre aprendido bastante e sempre podemos também aplicar e melhorar naquilo que nós estamos a fazer a nível tecnológico. Como funciona o sistema? O sistema está parametrizado com todos os processos de interação entre contribuintes. Isto é, o sistema deve ser transversal a todos os processos do negócio. O sistema, não obstante ser informático, mas ele deve estar alinhado com a legislação e aquilo que são os processos de negócio. Isto é, cadastro contribuinte, cadastro património, gestão declarativa de todos os impostos, principais impostos principalmente, o pagamento e o controle da cobrança, fiscalização, né? É preciso que o processo de fiscalização seja automatizado, né? Criando algumas regras a nível do sistema, contencioso administrativo, a mesma coisa, é importante que seja automatizado e não manual, execuções fiscais e contabilidade fiscal. Como eu já mencionei, a interação com o contribuinte hoje não precisa de ser presencial, né? Poderá ser via portal do contribuinte. O contribuinte apenas dirige-se à repartição se achar necessário, se tiver alguma questão que precisa de resolver presencialmente. Obrigado. Próximo, por favor. Quais são as principais lacunas que nós identificamos? Conforme eu mencionei, tanto o processo da reforma do sistema tributário é um processo faseado, né, onde foram definidas as prioridades, né, ainda assim já estamos bastante avançados. E o sistema tem acompanhado, então, esta evolução. Daí, o ICTA ser ainda um sistema em desenvolvimento. À medida que essas lacunas são identificadas ou melhorias que inicialmente não foram contempladas no sistema, que depois em produção, na utilização no seu dia a dia, constata-se que há necessidade de incrementar, então é feito esse ajuste. Temos essa vantagem que o sistema ainda está a ser desenvolvido e rapidamente podemos então ajustar. Quais são as lições aprendidas? Como eu disse, ainda estamos a caminhar, né? Ainda estamos a aprender, ainda temos muito que aprender, mas da experiência que nós tivemos também já aprendemos algumas lições, na qual é importante sempre ter o apoio, no nosso caso, Conselho de Administração, a nível mais alto nível. Nós temos contado com este apoio, até porque o sistema ele abrange aquilo que são os objetivos estratégicos. Então, sim, este apoio institucional tem sido crucial para o sucesso do sistema. O envolvimento das áreas de negócios também é crucial. É importante que as áreas de negócio definam os processos conforme eles são. A parte tecnológica vai fazer o desenvolvimento, mas deve estar sempre muito alinhada com a área de negócio para aquilo que efetivamente são os processos do dia a dia e a legislação depois estejam contempladas no sistema, sempre obedecendo aquilo que é a legislação para não ferir os direitos dos contribuintes. É muito importante também a comunicação, tanto interna como externa, porque a reforma traz sempre muitas alterações e muitas vezes essas alterações são muito rápidas. Então é importante que haja uma comunicação muito eficiente, tanto a nível interno dos serviços, como a nível dos contribuintes, para também termos uma melhor aceitação, tanto do sistema como também do processo, e temos aqui uma reforma mais eficiente e sem sobressaltos. É importante ter pessoas exclusivas e dedicadas ao projeto de desenvolvimento para garantir que tudo está a correr como foi definido. Normalmente, esses projetos tecnológicos são projetos muito complexos, porque a parte tributária, a matéria tributária é muito complexa, então é sempre um desafio em passar isso, em desenvolver e materializar isso para o sistema. Então é importante que tenha pessoas dedicadas para olhar e para garantir que o sistema de facto está a fazer aquilo que deve fazer e garantir a qualidade dos produtos. Isto também incentiva o cumprimento das obrigações fiscais. Se um produto for de fácil utilização e o contribuinte sentir conforto, não precisar de se movimentar, não precisar de sair do conforto da sua casa, do seu escritório, vai incentivar o cumprimento, né? Porque muitas vezes o contribuinte pensa em ir para uma repartição que vai estar cheia, que vai levar horas, assim, pelo menos o contribuinte não tem que perder muito tempo a cumprir com as suas obrigações fiscais. Pagar os impostos tem que ser um processo fácil, né? Não pode ser um castigo, tem que ser um processo fácil e nós estamos aqui, através do sistema, para facilitar o máximo possível e garantir que o contribuinte tenha o seu conforto. Próximo, por favor, obrigada. Eu vou falar muito rápido daquilo que são as iniciativas que já foram implementadas, que possibilitaram nós termos já alguma transformação digital, que mudaram completamente a forma como a administração hoje funciona e a interação com o próprio contribuinte. Próximo, obrigado. Próximo slide, por favor. O portal de contribuinte como uma repartição virtual. Hoje o portal de contribuinte é o nosso principal parceiro, é a nossa plataforma que possibilita, nós temos uma aproximação muito próxima com o contribuinte. Acho que passou o slide sem querer. Pode voltar, por favor. Nós hoje temos vários serviços já, obrigada, já disponíveis no portal do contribuinte. Já é possível fazer o cadastro de níveis singulares, hoje os contribuintes singulares já podem fazer o cadastro online, não precisam de ir presencial para a repartição. É possível atualizar os seus dados, né? Pedirem um comprovativo. É possível, e é muito, muito importante, foi muito importante este passo, a implementação das declarações dos principais impostos, hoje que nós temos, que são imposto industrial, imposto sobre valor acrescentado, imposto especial de consumo, imposto de rendimento de trabalho. Hoje, os principais impostos que nós temos já são submetidos via portal. É claro que isso hoje traz muitas vantagens, muitas vantagens. Anteriormente, nós tínhamos esses impostos a serem entregues de forma física, né, nas repartições, e o contribuinte também tinha que adquirir os formulários. Também era oneroso para o contribuinte, né? Ele tinha que pagar por esses formulários. Hoje o contribuinte não tem que gastar nada. Ele, com a sua internet, entra para o portal do contribuinte, preenche, faz a autodeclaração, paga e não tem que pagar nada. Imprime o seu comprovativo de pagamento e também não precisa de apresentar, né, para que a administração tenha esse controle. Então, não há custos associados. Então, também foi um passo muito importante para o contribuinte. Liquidação de impostos também é feita de forma automática. Hoje não há pagamento manual, todos os pagamentos são feitos de forma automática por uma referência única de pagamento de estados. Pode pagar a partir do multicaixa, internet banking. Então, também foi uma grande, grande conquista. Hoje, 100% da nossa receita é automática. Isto é, nós conseguimos ter visibilidade da receita arrecadada por dia, por hora, por minuto. Temos também outros serviços, né, para o melhor conforto do contribuinte, que anteriormente eram serviços que levavam muitos contribuintes à repartição, foram também incrementados no portal do contribuinte. Obrigado. Próximo, por favor. Como eu já mencionei, este ano nós implementamos a funcionalidade também para o contribuinte, para o registro do seu número de identificação fiscal. O contribuinte já não precisa de ir para a repartição, através do portal do contribuinte na sua casa, ele já pode criar o seu número de identificação fiscal. Mas essa funcionalidade foi apenas possível porque nós integramos com o Ministério da Justiça, né, que é o órgão responsável. Então, temos aqui uma integração já de sucesso, né, que possibilitou nós irmos buscar a informação da fonte. Então, nós pretendemos, a nível daquilo que é a estratégia, integrar com todos os outros órgãos, mas esta já é uma integração de sucesso. Obrigada e próximo, por favor. Okay. A nível da cobrança do imposto predial, estamos também a finalizar agora o registro via portal do contribuinte, né? Gostaria de dar nota que já é possível pagar o imposto via portal do contribuinte. Ainda assim, nós queríamos simplificar, facilitar a vida do contribuinte também no registro do seu imóvel, daí estarmos também a disponibilizar esta funcionalidade no portal do contribuinte, para o contribuinte não ter que se deslocar à repartição apenas para fazer o registro do seu imóvel. Okay? Obrigado. Próximo. Como eu já referi, a disponibilização das declarações eletrônicas foi muito importante, foi um ganho, né? Principalmente para os principais impostos que nós temos. Eu gostaria de referir que, no âmbito daquilo que é a reforma estrutural, foram implementados 2 novos impostos que são completamente eletrônicos, né, que é o imposto veículo, imposto sobre valor acrescentado e imposto especial de consumo, são impostos que nasceram eletrônicos. Quando digo nasceram eletrônicos, o que é que eu quero dizer? Que apenas poderá ser entregue ou submetido de forma eletrônica. Se o contribuinte não tiver possibilidade, por alguma razão, está numa região remota, que às vezes acontece, não tem acesso à internet, então o contribuinte pode ir à repartição e o agente tributário vai apoiá-lo na submissão eletrônica da declaração deste imposto. Não é possível submeter via papel ou via formulário. Então, isto é um ganho muito grande, muito grande. Nós temos tido um aumento substancial de declarações submetidas de forma eletrônica todos os anos. E a demanda aumentou nos últimos anos, tendo em conta as restrições do Covid, né? Restrições de deslocação. Então, muitos contribuintes que ainda estavam céticos ao utilizar o portal do contribuinte, viram-se nessa situação e usaram o portal do contribuinte e hoje só querem usar o portal do contribuinte. Então, o Covid também, sim, fez com que muitos contribuintes aderissem e, de facto, hoje reconhecem que é a melhor opção e é muito mais cômodo. Obrigado. Próximo. A nível da comunicação com os contribuintes, foi importante implementarmos a comunicação eletrônica, né? Antes disso, foi importante nós legislarmos este tema, né, para que essas notificações tenham um cunho legal. Hoje, nós já temos o modo de notificações eletrônicas. No portal do contribuinte, o contribuinte tem uma caixinha, né, onde fica sempre disponível as suas mensagens na interação entre a Administração Geral Tributária e o contribuinte. Então, é muito, muito importante, né? Mais uma medida que veio desmaterializar o papel, gastava-se muito papel nas notificações. Hoje, toda essa notificação é feita de forma eletrônica. Os processos são gerados no sistema, O sistema faz a expedição da documentação de forma eletrônica e estamos a caminhar para aquilo que nós pretendemos, que é uma visão 360 do contribuinte, onde a administração tributária vai poder olhar para o sistema e ver o seu histórico de todas as operações que tramitou junto da Administração Geral Tributária. Obrigada. O próximo, por favor. Em forma de resumo, eu trago alguns números acumulados que já foram alcançados nos últimos anos. Conforme eu já referi, o Sistema Integrado de Gestão Tributária foi implementado a princípio de 2018, apenas com um módulo. Hoje ele já conta com mais de 10 módulos, todos eles integrados, e continuamos a desenvolver os módulos que ainda estão em falta. A nível do SIGT, internamente, a nível de serviços, temos muitos utilizadores, mais de 6 mil. Temos novos cadastros dos contribuintes. Pagamentos gateway, mais de 70% da receita já é paga de forma eletrônica. Quando dizemos forma eletrônica, via portal do contribuinte. O contribuinte também tem a opção de, se tiver algum problema, ir para a repartição, mas os pagamentos são todos eletrônicos. O valor da arrecadação aumentou substancialmente, sem dizer que temos muito mais controle. O controle é diário, é na hora. Nós conseguimos saber a arrecadação quase em tempo real, principalmente para aqueles impostos que são eletrônicos, como eu já mencionei. Temos os contribuintes também singulares. Importa referir que tanto os singulares, tanto os contribuintes coletivos podem ter acesso ao portal do contribuinte para cumprir as suas obrigações. Não são apenas as empresas que têm as obrigações tributárias. A nível de liquidações, também o número tem aumentado, então eu trago apenas aqui um resumo. Acredito que consegui alcançar o tempo, tentei ser o mais breve possível, estamos a 31 minutos. Muito obrigado e coloco-me à disposição para questões que acharem pertinentes. Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Antonio, and thank you for covering your presentation within the allocated time. You took almost exactly 30 minutes and reserved the 15 minutes that I requested for interaction. I could try to summarize what you said, but maybe I wouldn't even do justice to it. But let me just high level point out that you shared with us the importance of stakeholder engagement in the development of your IT platform, where the board was involved, your internal stakeholders, as the team was involved, your external stakeholders, and I presume those would be your taxpayers, were also brought in. You proceeded to share with us the key objectives that you were trying to attain through the implementation of your system, which I could summarize as efficiency of revenue collection and ensuring effectiveness of the coverage of your taxpayers through the registration process in order to reduce tax evasion, and of course simplification of compliance by your taxpayers. And you then took us through the system's capabilities, which we appreciated very much. And more importantly, you highlighted the assistance that you received from the African Tax Administration Forum. And we are very grateful to ATAF for the capacity building and the support that they give to members. And lastly, you shared the numbers that were generated as a result of the impact that your system made or had on the administration let me quickly look at the chart. Unfortunately, the questions that I hear are posted in Portuguese. And I'm thinking that the ones that were posted at 4:30 would be the relevant ones. Okay, I think this one is in French. So if maybe our interpreters can help us read the questions. I think there's two questions there. Can somebody assist with interpretation there?
Commissioner General, I will read it in French and then the interpreters will interpret into English.
Thank you very much.
Donc, la question de Monsieur Hachi de Burkina Faso, question d'ordre général, comment assurer la souveraineté de nos États ou de nos administrations fiscales sur les données fiscales dans le cadre de cette numérisation, dans la mesure où nous utilisons des technologies étrangères et même que la maintenance est assurée par des filiales des sociétés multinationales.
Okay, I hope you got that, Mrs. Antonio. Hello, Mrs. Antonio. Did you get the question, ma'am? Please unmute.
Sim, muito obrigado pela pergunta, é bastante pertinente. É muito importante que tenhamos em conta que estes sistemas são a materialização de planos estratégicos, muitas vezes da instituição do país. Então, é crucial que nós tenhamos quadros nacionais, né, a garantir também esta parte tecnológica, né? Não podemos simplesmente alocar a empresas estrangeiras, temos que garantir que temos quadros nacionais capazes, né? Aliás, faz parte do processo, garantir que o recrutamento de pessoas certas para levar avante esse processo de reestruturação. A nível, falando um bocadinho daquilo que é a nossa experiência desse processo, nós temos isso salvaguardado, né? Temos um plano de sustentabilidade muito bem alinhado e temos também quadros nacionais a levar o projeto, a desenvolver o projeto. Então, sim, é importante que tenhamos em conta que deveremos recrutar e ter nestes projetos, no desenvolvimento, os quadros nacionais. Espero que tenha respondido, não sei se consegui esclarecer. Relativamente à segunda questão, dos prédios rústicos, a nível da reforma estrutural, como eu já mencionei, está-se a fazer a revisão de vários diplomas, né, de vários impostos, entre eles o Código do Imposto Predial, né, que faz exatamente essa distinção. Este código foi aprovado recentemente, essa alteração legislativa, e, obviamente, nós agora precisamos de tempo para adequar o sistema a essa alteração. Como eu já tinha mencionado, né, o sistema deve estar sempre alinhado com aquilo que são as alterações legislativas para não lesar o contribuinte, para dar mais comodidade ao contribuinte, mas nós também precisamos de tempo, né, para desenvolver o sistema. Claro que pretendemos fazer isso no mais curto tempo possível, mas o desenvolvimento leva o seu tempo, que depois internamente é definido. Obrigado.
Thank you, Madam. If you could go into the chat so that you can handle the next two questions. I do believe they are in Portuguese. I can't read Portuguese, but I think I can identify it. So please, if you could, so that we can move quickly. Are you able to do that, ma'am? There are 2 questions on the chat.
A maior parte das perguntas, tax auditing, tax administration. As perguntas estão em inglês, algumas em francês.
Oh.
Gostaria
Unless we are
de
seeing
pedir,
different
solicitar o
screens,
vosso
ma'am. I see
apoio,
one from
né,
a Wilson Kapinda,
para traduzir aqui,
which is in
principalmente as questões em
French.
francês.
Okay.
Posso
Thank you,
responder já que estão sob automatização.
Yes, thank you. And then the
Tem
one
aqui uma
by
questão
Banizi,
sob automatização da...
is that French?
Sim, sim.
There's one by Banizi.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner General.
Yes,
I'm going to translate the question in English. It says, is tax audit automated in your tax administration?
Por favor.
Thank you. And if I may request that as the translation goes on for Ms. Antonio, we take that as our last question.
Ok, obrigada pela pergunta. Conforme eu também mencionei durante a minha apresentação, o sistema deve albergar todos os processos e dentro deste processo existe o processo de fiscalização que é transversal a todos os processos de negócio. Nós estamos neste momento a trabalhar num processo de fiscalização, né, que é bastante complexo, porque ele tem que ser transversal a todas as operações, todos os atos dos contribuintes e de forma automática. Então, sim, hoje é possível nós verificarmos alguma informação automatizada a nível do contribuinte. Temos, sim, um sistema de fiscalização já funcional. Ainda assim, estamos a melhorar o nosso sistema de fiscalização para que ele não tenha qualquer intervenção humana. Né? Isto é, quando o contribuinte submeter, por exemplo, uma declaração, né, declarar uma declaração de imposto, o sistema, de forma automática, com base na parametrização de regras, deve verificar se aquele contribuinte está, de facto, a declarar de forma correta. Então, sim, nós hoje já temos um sistema de fiscalização, ainda assim, nós queremos ter mais automatismo para que haja o mínimo de intervenção humana. Obrigada.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Antonio. And may I then attempt to bring this session to a close by volunteering the following conclusion. I think there is no doubt that tax administration cannot be made more effective and efficient without the use of IT platforms. From the different presentations that we have heard today, the different countries obviously have made some headway in this regard to try and develop their respective IT platforms. I think what is interesting is that almost everybody, as it should be expected, has encountered some challenges or other. Now, what is further interesting is that almost all the systems that we have discussed about in this room are underpinned by systems whose origins are from abroad. Maybe I'm not sure what the SARS system that we saw is based on, but you have people talking of SAP, you have people talking of Oracle as the underpinning platform that is being used. So I would venture to say it would be helpful for the Africa Tax Administration Forum at the least to assist us with the documentation of all these challenges, because I think they can give us a very good basis and roadmap as we continue in this direction, because I'm not too sure if there are locally based suppliers of the base systems that we use. But at the best, if we could move towards trying to make sure that we stop this bleeding, because it is not just the problem of the fact that sometimes you also have to contend with time differences when you have serious issues to be dealt with on our respective systems, because the provider of the system is somewhere in some interesting part of the world. But the foreign exchange that we have to then believe, as I think Mr. Nyanga and also my brother from Burkina Faso observed, it is also quite large in a lot of instances, you know, as you request changes to be made on the systems. So I'm saying the best play or solution that could be delivered would be trying to make sure that we bring onshore the provision of the underlying systems in this particular area, because clearly I think IT platforms are here to stay. Mr. Program Director, thank you very much. Let me park my session here.
Merci beaucoup, commissaire général Dumisani Masilela. Quels incroyables 3 jours que nous venons de passer. Tellement de sujets, tellement d'enthousiasme et de participation, aussi bien de la part des panélistes, des modérateurs que des délégués. Ça a été un véritable honneur et un plaisir pour moi et ma collègue Refiloué de vous avoir servi de maître de cérémonie tout au long de cette conférence. Le débat continue sur la toile à travers les réseaux sociaux, Twitter et Facebook, @ATAFTax, et les hashtags ICTA 2021 et ATAF ICTA, tout en majuscules. C'est tout pour moi. Je cède maintenant la parole au secrétaire exécutif de l'ATAF, M. Logan Worth, pour le mot de clôture. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Romeo and Refilwe. Ladies and gentlemen, Commissioners General, members of the ATAF Council, commissioners, members of ministries, participants throughout the past 3 days. What an incredible 3 days, as Romeo has just indicated. In fact, our last chairman, Mr. Dumisani Masilela, Commissioner General of Eswatini Revenue Authority, is in fact the catalyst of the ATAF project to develop an IT tax administration system for Africa. That was part of a discussion in one of the breakaway groups in the session before the health break. And we are looking forward, Commissioner General Masilela, to taking that project forward, because you have driven the need for IT, for digital capabilities, and have also highlighted to me personally the difficulties in having so many systems. And every time you get new advice, it's a new system, nothing that we own, as was stated throughout this conference, and nothing that is really created for the conditions of, in this case, your tax administration, and that of many others. And so the ADB project that very ably gave rise to the very well-developed guidebook that our members are currently using, and that was part of that breakaway discussion, will feed in, and is already feeding in, to the 3-year project to try and look at the feasibility of developing a tax administration IT system that the continent can use and own, and that can be adapted to the conditions of each country. And that project is now integrated into the 3-year project that came at the initiation of Commissioner General Masilela. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our 5th International Conference on Tax in Africa. Over the past 3 days, of course, under the theme Resource Mobilization, Accelerating Technology for African Tax Administrations, I wish to thank all of you for your participation and unrivaled engagement. We had optimal presence throughout the past 3 days. The intention of the conference was to explore and share experiences on how digital technology can enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of tax administrations in revenue collection, compliance, taxpayer relations, and fostering business growth. It is my conviction that this has been achieved and exceeded, because in addition to these, networks have been established, references exchanged, and otherwise complex concepts have been unpacked through expert presentations, case studies such as the last one, and very active debates. Primarily, the exchanges about homegrown solutions have led to major leaps, such as the e-filing system developed by Tanzania, amongst others, and the systems that enable tax administrations to navigate the past 2 years of this pandemic and remain afloat to sustain business continuity despite being under lockdowns or reduced economic activities. This is to be applauded. The last 3 days have indeed illustrated that technology for African tax administrations is indeed a key enabler to improve efficiency in our service delivery and effectiveness in collecting revenue. As indicated before, during the COVID-19 pandemic, countries that were digitalized remained largely highly operational. And that is why, as part of the ATAF strategy for the next decade, while the focus on tax administrations will continue, that's our core business, it is the digitalization of these administrations for effective and efficiency that will be a central focus of what we do, especially over the next 3 years. This is indeed one of the key pillars of our next 10-year strategy. Digitization is no longer an option for tax administration, no longer a choice. Strategic planning by countries must look into investing sufficiently into digitization. We saw over the last 3 days that forward-looking and innovation does increase efficiency in revenue administrations, and ATAF will continue to work with our partners. Our partners such as the African Union Commission, the African Development Bank, the World Customs Organization, the OECD, and others, to support where possible, as well as facilitate peer learning. And in this regard, we are also grateful to the various countries that are donors to ATAF in our pool funds and in our bilateral funding. And through them, even this conference have been made possible. Hence, ATAF's focus on this theme as the future for effective domestic resource mobilization is there. Dear participants, we are in agreement that not only does digitalization boost performance, but it also equips the user with skills and means to detect and deter its misuse. An example has been seen in customs systems that detect illicit trade, such as the technologies like the electronic cargo tracking systems we heard about. While the initial investment may be heavy in terms of cost, the long-term gains are invaluable. Countries therefore need to prioritize these digital solutions. It will secure and sustain revenue in the long term. A key element to note is that there is no better place to learn than from each other, where the solutions have been tested and proven to be effective in our conditions. This also means that whatever risks, challenges, and mistakes have been considered and overcome is tested. This is an important point, colleagues. For many years, we have been part of capacity building, technical assistance of people with good intentions, with good hearts, but they come in, stay for a week and go home out of Africa. They come in, deliver a system, we don't own it, we don't operate it, and as we've heard through this conference, at high cost to ourselves, have to pay to maintain and understand. And so through benchmarking and peer learning and learning from each other and developing systems out of the best practices from ourselves, we probably are investing in something good. The case studies shared by both the Federal Inland Revenue Service of Nigeria and the Zambian Revenue Authority are a case in point. And they show that the interaction of their systems with that of the banks were initially resisted by the banks. And it has now yielded results and information that would otherwise not have been attainable is now possible. This is information such as bank charges, commissions, and profits that are now instantly available to revenue authorities. Needless to say, this is major breakthrough when assessing the financial sector in general or the banking sector in particular. It proves that investment in technology and bold strategic decisions goes hand in hand. Dear participants, another key area that we looked at is how technology enables countries to easily access data that informs their risk management. Tax administrations now use risk management to facilitate better decisions and subsequently better deployment of resources. And TADAT was used as an example. ATAF continues to partner with the IMF in TADAT assessments, and this as a way of finding solutions based on the gaps identified. For this type of risk management to happen, we also saw the power of data. A clear gap continues to be the capacity of administrations to consume the data and deploy it according to their needs. This is because data-driven technologies empower revenue authorities to make accurate and beneficial decisions. And so ATAF and our partners, we are more than ready to provide the support required to hone the skills of data collection, data analysis, and data management as clearly spelled out in our strategy for the next decade. As we come to the end of this conference, the key takeaway is that technology will drive our future and that the right policies, intentional investments, and buy-in is required for all of us to proceed. The beauty of it all is that there are pioneers who have borne the brunt of innovation, and we've heard them here. And we only need to look enough, plan, invest, and be willing to learn. Together we can do this. And ATAF is ready for this challenge. Technology will not only make us more effective in revenue collection, but it will also tighten the burden. It will also lighten the burden of our taxpayers, of our businesses and our individuals. And as we streamline our tax systems and as we prepare for full implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, let us focus on accelerating technology systems to maximize the gains. At ATAF, we don't only believe in this, but we are determined to work with our members to make this happen. And as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, commissioners general, I wish to express my gratitude to each and every one of you who participated in this, the ATAF 5th International Conference on Tax in Africa. It's a conference we have every 2 years. And the year in between, we have the ATAF General Assembly. So next year, you will be invited to attend our General Assembly, where similar in-depth discussions will take place. To you, our members and all participants, you are the reason why the conference have been memorable. Your questions, input, and interjections made for better debate and richer discussion. To the ATAF chairman and members of the council, thank you for your guidance and your continued leadership of ATAF. We are very grateful. Our experts, our moderators here and of the past 3 days, our panelists, we are grateful to you for your brilliant inputs that demonstrate invested time in preparing for this meeting. We are truly indebted to you, to our development partners and institutions for whom we deliver this work. Thank you for making this possible. To the entire organizing team of this event, I wish to specifically thank the excellent team of this conference. That is our first virtual international conference on tax in Africa. Your tireless efforts and tenacity has delivered an extremely impressive conference. Both the team handling the content, the communications team, have done us all proud. I wish to make special mention of the following people. Ms. Bernadine Kermes, who was the lead coordinator of this entire conference, for your excellent organization and running of this event. Ms. Jane Molokani, who is behind all the technical support at this entire conference. You have done us proud, and the leadership and guidance of Mrs. Varsha Singh as the overall coordinator, we are truly, truly thankful to you. We're also grateful and thankful to the convener of the language coordination, Mrs. Christine Trojev, for your excellent teamwork in getting our language and our linguistic areas well sorted out. Our very able facilitators, Romeo and Refilwe, brilliant work, and thank you for steering this discussion with confidence and very nice humor. And a huge thank you to our interpreters. Thank you for always enabling us to understand each other. We appreciate you very much, and we do realize the importance of your role, for you to get things right, for us to speak clearly and slowly, and especially the challenge for you to understand often very complex tax and other terminology. And finally, I finally would like to say that the times require that we align with technologies that support our work. Let us not just continue in this conversation, but let us play our part and embrace the decisions we have to make, whether strategic or operational. We deliver both effectively and efficiently in a quest to improve domestic resource mobilization for Africa's development. And remember this, the people at this conference, the leaders of tax administrations, the commissioners general, the members of ATAF, the ATAF council, the ATAF secretariat, we are all together in this. And with leaders such as Mr. Kasipe, who was here earlier, Mr. Masilela, who was here earlier, Mr. Lau, and other people who came, the Commissioner General from Seychelles, who was on earlier, and all of the leadership in tax administrations across who are members of ATAF. We are committed to drive change on this continent, and technology is going to play a central part. I wish to thank you for an engaging 3 days. I wish you and your family well, and I thank you for your attention. Have a good evening and a very good weekend. I thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Secrétaire exécutif. Je crois qu'il n'y a plus rien à rajouter. Mesdames et messieurs, cette plateforme restera disponible pendant 30 jours après cette conférence. Je vous souhaite un bon week-end à tous et à très bientôt.